Gone too soon. 20 black teen stars who died unexpectedly. What if the brightest stars burned out before the world even had a chance to see their full light? From chart-topping prodigies to teenage icons of the screen, these young black talents were on the brink of greatness until tragedy struck. Some were silenced by violence, others by addiction, and a few by heartbreaking twists of fate. Their deaths weren't just untimely, they were shocking. As we uncover the real stories behind these sudden losses, you'll realize fame couldn't protect them from destiny. Watch till the end, subscribe, and join the conversation, because some legacies deserve to be remembered out loud. Bobbi Kristina Brown. Bobbi Kristina Brown was born into a world of platinum records, flashing cameras, and emotional chaos. As the only child of music legend Whitney Houston and singer Bobby Brown, she didn't choose fame, it chose her. From infancy, she was trailed by paparazzi and headlines often caught in the turbulence of her parents' volatile relationship and public struggles. Despite growing up amidst turmoil, Bobbi Kristina idolized her mother. Their bond was intense, often described as more sisterly than maternal. She inherited not only Whitney's stunning features, but also her artistic sensibility. She dabbled in singing and had dreams of stepping into the limelight with her own identity. In 2012, following Whitney Houston's sudden death in a hotel bathtub, an 18-year-old Bobbi Kristina was visibly broken. Her grief was raw, and she appeared increasingly fragile in the years that followed. She attempted to stay connected to the public through a short-lived reality show, The Houstons on Our Own, and a controversial relationship with Nick Gordon, her unofficially adopted brother, which raised many eyebrows. The couple's toxic dynamic was marked by troubling rumors of substance abuse and manipulation. On January 31, 2015, tragedy echoed through the family once again. Bobbi Kristina was found unconscious in her bathtub in Georgia, eerily mirroring her mother's final moments. After months in a medically induced coma, she died on July 26, 2015, at just 22. An autopsy revealed drug intoxication and immersion in water as contributing factors. Her passing felt like the closing chapter of a sorrowful family saga. Bobbi Kristina never fully escaped the long shadows cast by fame, addiction, and grief. But in her short life, she became a symbol of innocence, caught in the storm of celebrity legacy. Lil Weiss. Alexander Antonio Jr., known to fans as Lil Yachty, emerged from the gritty neighborhoods of Sunnydale, San Francisco, determined to carve his name into the ever-expanding landscape of West Coast rap. He wasn't signed to a big label, nor did he blow up overnight. Instead, Yachty earned respect the old-school way through consistency, hustle, and unapologetic authenticity. He began releasing music in his teens, dropping mixtapes and videos that resonated with local audiences. Songs like Get It In and No Diss showcased his street wisdom, calm delivery, and sharp storytelling. Bay Area blogs and underground radio embraced him. He collaborated with fellow regional artists, expanding his circle and momentum. His style wasn't flashy, it was real. Fans admired his ability to represent their environment without theatrics. In 2015, his track Diss Me gained traction, helping him reach audiences beyond the Bay. Just as it seemed his breakthrough was near tragedy, derailed everything. On November 28, 2020, news broke that Lil Yachty had been found shot near a train station in Dublin, California, miles away from where he was last seen. He was just 25 years old. Details surrounding his death remain sparse, stirring speculation among fans. What's known is that he left a studio session in good spirits and never made it home. The stark suddenness of his passing left a vacuum in his community. Yachty's name wasn't on every billboard, but his presence loomed large in the hearts of those who knew his journey. He represented a generation of independent dreamers who worked without shortcuts. Lil Yachty didn't get to finish his story, but in the Bay, his voice still echoes. King Von, born Davon Daquan Bennett on August 9, 1994. King Von grew up on Chicago's South Side in the crime-heavy O Block neighborhood. Raised in an environment where survival was a daily mission, Vaughn's early years were shaped by street life, incarceration, and trauma. But he wasn't just a product of his circumstances, he was a storyteller, and music became his weapon. Vaughn found his path through fellow Chicago rapper Lil Durk, who took him under his wing and signed him to Only the Family OTF. By the time he released his debut single Crazy Story in 2018, his blend of vivid narrative, raw emotion, and real-life experiences had set him apart. Unlike many rappers who glamorized violence, Vaughn delivered his truth like a reporter on the front lines, gritty, detailed, and unflinching. His music quickly gained traction. Tracks like Took Her to the O and 3 a.m. showcased his evolving flow and storytelling mastery. His debut album, Welcome to O Block, dropped in October 2020, further cementing his place among drill rap's rising elite. But the success was short-lived. On November 6, 2020, outside an Atlanta hookah lounge, King Von was caught in a physical altercation that escalated into gunfire. He was shot multiple times and later died at age 26. The incident, captured on surveillance footage, sent shockwaves through the hip-hop community. Just a week earlier, Vaughn had been celebrating the release of his album. His death reignited conversations about gun violence, trauma, and the inability of fame to shield artists from their pasts. King Von lived what he rapped, but he was also trying to transition beyond it. His life was a complex intersection of pain, growth, and potential that ended before transformation could fully take root. Pop Smoke, Bashar Baraka. Jackson, better known as Pop Smoke, was more than just a drill rapper. He was a cultural shift. Born July 20th, 1999 in Brooklyn, New York, Pop grew up surrounded by the duality of church and chaos. His Caribbean roots gave him rhythm, the streets of Canarsie gave him grit. He didn't plan on being a rapper. Originally aiming for basketball, an injury shifted his focus. In 2018, at just 18 years old, he stumbled into a studio session and found his calling. With a distinct gravelly tone and unmatched presence, Pop's breakout single Welcome to the Party exploded in 2019, becoming a national anthem almost overnight. He wasn't mimicking New York's past, he was rewriting it. With hits like Dior War and Shake the Room, he brought UK drill beats into American mainstream and gave Brooklyn its newest icon. Collaborations with Travis Scott, Nicki Minaj, and Quavo proved his rapid industry ascent. But on February 19, 2020, just as his debut album was in the works, Pop Smoke was shot and killed during a home invasion at an Airbnb in the Hollywood Hills. He was only 20. Investigators later revealed it was a targeted robbery. He had accidentally posted the address online. What should have been the dawn of a global career turned into a sudden ending. Yet his posthumous album, Shoot for the Stars, Aim for the Moon, went multi-platinum, proving his light hadn't been extinguished, it had only begun to burn. Pop Smoke didn't just represent a sound, he was a symbol of a borough reclaiming its identity. His death remains a sobering reminder of how quickly promise can turn to tragedy. Juice WRLD. Jared Anthony Higgins, better known as Juice WRLD, wasn't just another rapper, he was a genre-breaking prodigy. Born on December 2, 1998 in Chicago, he grew up on a steady mix of emo rock, video games, and heartbreak. That blend shaped his unique sound, vulnerable, melodic, and emotionally raw. At just 19, he went viral with Lucid Dreams, a haunting track about love and mental torment. With lyrics that felt like diary entries, Juice became the voice for countless youth struggling with anxiety, heartbreak, and addiction. His debut album, Goodbye and Good Riddance 2018, was a hit. The follow-up, Death Race for Love 2019, debuted at number 1. Unlike many artists who hid behind bravado, Juice WRLD wore his demons openly. He often rapped about Percocet lean and inner battles, not to glorify them but to confront them. Fans connected deeply, and his concerts became therapy sessions for a generation lost in digital numbness. But behind the fame, Juice was fighting real battles. On December 8, 2019, just 6 days after his 21st birthday, he suffered a fatal seizure at Chicago's Midway Airport. The medical examiner confirmed the cause, an accidental overdose of oxycodone and codeine. His death shook the music world. A young man who openly warned about the dangers of drugs had become another victim of them. Yet his legacy endures. Posthumous releases and unreleased lyrics continue to resonate, reminding the world that he wasn't just a performer, he was a mirror reflecting youth's unspoken pain. Juice WRLD left behind a promise to turn sorrow into sound. And though he's gone, that sound still saves lives. XXXTentacion, born Jose Dwayne Ricardo, Onfroy on January 23, 1998. XXXTentacion was a walking paradox, part poet, part firestorm. Raised in South Florida, his early life was marred by instability, juvenile detention, and explosive emotions. But it was from that turbulence that his artistry emerged, defying genre and convention. At just 17, he uploaded "Look at Me" to SoundCloud, a jarring, distorted track that exploded like a Molotov cocktail in the rap scene. He followed it with a flood of raw, emotionally unfiltered music that touched on depression, betrayal, and existential pain. To fans, he was more than an artist, he was a lifeline. Yet controversy constantly trailed him. He faced legal battles, including serious allegations of domestic abuse, which split public opinion. Still, albums like 17 and topped charts, offering a vulnerable lens into mental health, heartbreak, and healing. For millions, he was the first rapper to openly discuss suicidal ideation without shame. On June 18, 2018, XXXTentacion was gunned down in broad daylight during a robbery outside a motorcycle dealership in Deerfield Beach, Florida. He was 20 years old. His murder was captured on surveillance footage, shocking fans and critics alike. His death ignited fierce debates. Was he a troubled genius or a cautionary tale? A violent youth or a prophet for the misunderstood? Perhaps he was all of these things, deeply flawed, yet deeply human. XXXTentacion's story remains unresolved. Loved and loathed in equal measure, he left behind a catalog of pain turned into poetry. He didn't ask to be a role model, but he became a mirror for an entire generation of young people seeking clarity in chaos. Trey Savage. Travis Savage, known as Trey Savage, wasn't a household name, but to those immersed in the pulse of Chicago's drill scene, he was a fierce presence. As a core member of Glow Gang, the crew made famous by Chief Keef Trey embodied the gritty realism of a city fighting its own shadow. Raised in the heart of Chicago's South Side, Trey was forged by survival. His music didn't sugarcoat violence or glamorize trauma, it confronted them head-on. Tracks like I Got and Kill or Be Killed weren't radio hits, but they were anthems for the block. His style was straightforward, unfiltered, and heavy with experience. He appeared on multiple mixtapes alongside Fredo Santana Ball Out and Lil Reese, building a loyal base that respected his authenticity. By his early 20s, Trey Savage had made a name for himself not through commercial success, but through consistency and loyalty to the streets that raised him. On June 19, 2020, his life ended abruptly. While driving near 81st and Evans Avenue, he was ambushed and shot in the neck and shoulder. His car rolled forward before crashing. He was 26 years old. His murder barely made national headlines, but for Chicago, it was another gut punch. Another young man silenced before he could grow beyond the environment that birthed him. Police believe the shooting was targeted, part of the ongoing violence that continues to claim lives in the city's marginalized neighborhoods. Trey Savage didn't chase fame. He represented the overlooked, the unheard. His legacy isn't in gold records, it's in the respect he earned, the fearlessness he carried, and the truths he told. Lee Thompson Young. Lee Thompson. Young was once the symbol of youthful brilliance. Born on February 1, 1984 in Columbia, South Carolina, he captivated a generation as the star of Disney Channel's The Famous Jet Jackson. Portraying a teenage action hero who balanced Hollywood fame with a normal high school life, Young wasn't just playing a role, he was living one. From an early age, his focus was laser sharp. He was writing short stories by elementary school and landed his breakout role at just 14. As Jet Jackson, he offered young black viewers a rare and powerful image, a smart, kind, capable teen at the center of his own story. After the Disney series ended, Young pursued more complex roles. He appeared in Friday Night Lights, Aquila, and The Bee, and eventually became a recurring character on TNT's Rizzoli and Isles. But beneath the surface, he was struggling with something far deeper than anyone realized. On August 19, 2013, Young was found dead in his Los Angeles apartment, the result of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. He was 29. His manager confirmed he had been quietly battling bipolar disorder for years, a fight he kept hidden from the public eye. The news stunned Hollywood. Young was seen as grounded, intelligent, and disciplined, but his death revealed a sobering truth. Even those who seem to have it all can be silently drowning. Lee Thompson. Young left behind more than roles. He left a legacy of representation, of quiet dignity, and of a deeper conversation about mental health in the Black community. His smile lit up screens, but the pain behind it, unseen and unspoken, reminds us all of the importance of compassion beyond the spotlight. Michelle Thomas. Michelle Thomas had the kind of charm that couldn't be taught. It sparkled through every scene she graced. Born on September 23, 1968 in Brookline, Massachusetts, she was immersed in artistry from the start. Her father, a founding member of Kool and the Gang, and her mother, a stage actress, fostered a creative environment where Michelle's natural talents could flourish. By her teens, she was captivating viewers on The Cosby Show, playing Justine Phillips, the sweet and intelligent girlfriend of Theo Huxtable. Her warm presence and expressive eyes made her instantly relatable. But it was her role as Myra Monkhouse on Family Matters that truly defined her legacy. As Steve Urkel's quirky, obsessive love interest, Michelle turned a supporting role into a fan favorite, combining comedic timing with undeniable heart. Behind the scenes, she was known for her kindness, humility, and deep spirituality. She avoided Hollywood's excess choosing, instead to focus on craft and connection. But in 1997, her world changed. She was diagnosed with a rare form of stomach cancer called desmoplastic small round cell tumor, an aggressive disease rarely found in young adults. Despite the diagnosis, Michelle remained resilient. She continued working, refusing to let illness dim her light. But by late 1998, her condition worsened. Surrounded by loved ones, she passed away on December 23, 1998, at the age of 30. Her death was a heartbreaking blow to fans who had grown up watching her evolve. Michelle Thomas didn't headline blockbuster films or top music charts, but she left something more enduring: joy, laughter, and the memory of a woman whose talent and spirit transcended scripts. Merlin Santana. Merlin Santana had charisma that jumped off the screen. Born on March 14, 1976 in New York City to Dominican parents, he entered show business early, modeling at age 3 and landing television spots by childhood. But it was in his teenage years that he became a household name. Audiences first noticed him as Stanley Rudy Huxtable's boyfriend on The Cosby Show. His charm, confidence, and sharp comedic sense quickly made him stand out. By the late 90s, he had fully blossomed into teen heartthrob territory thanks to his iconic role as Romeo Santana on The Steve Harvey Show. With his smooth delivery and effortless swagger, Romeo was every high schooler's dream version of themselves, witty, bold, and full of style. Behind the scenes, Santana was ambitious. He wanted to break away from being typecast and had started branching into film and music. He had the drive, the talent, and the discipline to build a long-lasting career. But that promise was violently cut short. On November 9, 2002, while sitting in a parked car in South Los Angeles, Santana was shot in the head. He was just 26 years old. The motive behind the murder was rooted in a false accusation by a young woman leading her companions to target him in a tragic misunderstanding. His death sent shockwaves through Black Hollywood. It wasn't just a loss of talent. It was a loss of a young man trying to build something bigger than himself. Merlin Santana's legacy isn't just tied to the roles he played, but to the silence he left behind. A voice of a generation was erased not by time or illness, but by senseless violence. Aaliyah. Aaliyah Dana Houghton was elegance in motion. Born January 16, 1979 in Brooklyn and raised in Detroit, she exuded grace, coolness, and a mystique rare even among pop stars. By age 10, she was performing with Gladys Knight. At 14, she released her debut album, Age Ain't Nothing But a Number, a bold and controversial launch produced by R. Kelly. Though her early career was overshadowed by rumors and an illegal marriage, Aaliyah didn't let scandal define her. She reinvented herself with collaborators Timbaland and Missy Elliott. The trio created a futuristic R&B sound that influenced an entire generation. Tracks like One in a Million, Are You That Somebody, and Try Again showcased her sultry vocals, minimalistic production, and forward-thinking style. Aaliyah wasn't just a singer, she was a dancer, actress, and fashion icon. She had just wrapped filming on Queen of the Damned and was gaining critical attention in Hollywood. The sky was the limit until it tragically wasn't. On August 25, 2001, after filming the music video for Rock the Boat in the Bahamas, Aaliyah boarded a small plane to return to the U.S. The aircraft was overloaded and shortly after takeoff it crashed. Everyone on board died. Aaliyah was only 22. Her passing devastated fans and halted one of the most promising careers in modern music. Posthumous releases, documentaries, and tribute performances have kept her influence alive, but they cannot fill the void she left. Aaliyah wasn't just poised to be a superstar, she already was one. Her sound, style, and spirit live on a permanent reminder of brilliance lost too soon. Chris Kelly, Christopher Mac Daddy Kelly, was the face of a cultural phenomenon that took the early 90s by storm. Born on August 11, 1978 in Atlanta, Georgia. Kelly was only 13 years old when music producer Jermaine Dupri discovered him at a mall alongside his rap partner Chris Smith. Together they became Criss Cross, and in 1992 their debut single, Jump, launched them into superstardom. Sporting backward clothes and unmatched swagger, Kelly was a natural performer. His high-energy, sharp rhymes and on-stage chemistry with Smith made the duo unforgettable. Their debut album, Totally Crossed Out, sold over 4 million copies in the U.S. alone, earning them world tours, TV appearances, and a place in hip-hop history as one of the youngest acts to ever dominate the charts. But fame faded quickly. As the mid-90s approached, the group struggled to grow with their audience. Kelly, once a teen idol, found himself grappling with the weight of early stardom and the silence that followed. He retreated from the spotlight, occasionally appearing in local Atlanta music circles, but never recapturing the same success. Tragically, on May 1, 2013, Kelly was found unresponsive in his home. He was pronounced dead at the age of 34. The medical examiner later confirmed the cause as a drug overdose involving heroin and cocaine, a painful end for someone whose career began with such joy and energy. Chris Kelly's story is a sobering reminder of how sudden fame can distort reality and how difficult it is to navigate the aftermath. He may have been gone too soon, but Jump still plays proof that for a moment he made the whole world bounce. Chris Smith, Christopher Daddy. Mac Smith grew up in Atlanta and entered the music world at just 13 years old, forming one half of the explosive rap duo Criss Cross. Alongside his friend Chris Kelly Smith, helped redefine what it meant to be young and powerful in hip-hop. Their debut track Jump wasn't just a hit, it was a cultural movement topping the Billboard Hot 100 for 8 consecutive weeks in 1992. With their backward clothes and bold style, Criss Cross became a youth-driven brand. Smith, known for his slightly more reserved demeanor compared to Kelly's bravado, brought balance to the duo's dynamic. Their synergy was electric, and fans adored their confidence and originality. Albums like Totally Crossed Out and Da Bomb cemented their place in the golden age of 90s rap. But as trends evolved, Criss Cross struggled to keep up. The industry that once praised them moved on, and Smith, like his partner, faded from the mainstream. Unlike Kelly, however, Smith focused on personal growth. He distanced himself from the industry chaos, focusing on production work, education, and spiritual development. Still, the bond between the two never truly dissolved. When Chris Kelly died in 2013, Smith delivered a deeply emotional eulogy at his funeral, describing their brotherhood as unbreakable. The loss shook him publicly and personally. Though Smith is still alive, his journey cannot be separated from the trauma of losing a lifelong friend and collaborator at such a young age. He carries not just the legacy of Chris Cross, but the memory of innocence, the echo of screaming fans, and the weight of what could have been. Jimi Hendrix. Before he became a psychedelic legend, Jimi Hendrix was a teenage dreamer crafting melodies on a second-hand guitar in the backstreets of Seattle. Born Johnny Allen Hendrix on November 27, 1942, he transformed into a self-taught prodigy by the time he was 16, emulating blues icons like Muddy Waters and B.B. King, while creating techniques no one had ever seen. By his late teens, Hendrix had already mastered the art of turning pain into rhythm. He performed in local clubs, served in the army as a paratrooper, and then returned to music with even more intensity. His stage presence was electric, literally. He'd play his guitar with his teeth behind his back or set it on fire. He wasn't showing off, he was channeling something spiritual. When Are You Experienced dropped in 1967, the world finally caught up with what Hendrix had already known he was singular. Songs like Purple Haze Foxy Lady and The Wind Cries. Mary weren't just hits, they were genre-bending revolutions. Yet behind the colorful clothes and flamboyant solos was a man battling internal storms. On September 18, 1970, at the age of 27, Hendrix was found dead in a London apartment, having asphyxiated on his own vomit after taking sleeping pills. The world lost not just a guitarist, but a visionary. Jimi Hendrix's life was short, but seismic. He redefined rock and roll, reshaped black identity in music spaces dominated by whiteness, and left behind a legacy too large for any one lifetime. Though he died young, his sound never aged. The Notorious B.I.G., Christopher George LaTorre. Wallace, better known as the Notorious B.I.G., or Biggie Smalls, embodied the raw essence of East Coast hip-hop. Born on May 21, 1972 in Brooklyn's Bedford-Stuyvesant neighborhood, Biggie's teenage years were steeped in hardship. By 17, he had dropped out of high school and started hustling to survive. But amidst the chaos, his lyrical talent was undeniable. He recorded freestyle tapes in his bedroom, rhyming about what he saw: poverty, violence, ambition. Those early recordings eventually landed in the hands of Sean "Puffy" Combs, who signed him to Bad Boy Records. By 21, Biggie was changing the landscape of rap. His debut album, Ready to Die, 1994, told the story of a young black man caught between struggle and success. His voice was thunderous, yet smooth, weaving complex stories with vivid imagery. Tracks like Juicy Big Papa and Warning painted a picture of triumph laced with tragedy. He wasn't glorifying the streets, he was reporting from them. But fame came with enemies. As the East Coast-West Coast rivalry escalated, Biggie found himself in the crossfire. After Tupac Shakur's murder in 1996, tensions rose. Then on March 9, 1997, Biggie was fatally shot in a drive-by in Los Angeles just 2 weeks before the release of his second album, Life After Death. He was 24. Biggie's death wasn't just a loss for music, it was a wound in the soul of hip-hop. His storytelling flow and honesty made him a legend. Though his time was brief, his impact continues to echo through every artist who dares to speak their truth. Sam Cooke. Sam Cooke wasn't just a singer, he was a seismic shift. Born January 22, 1931 in Clarksdale, Mississippi, and raised in Chicago. Cooke's voice stood out even as a child. By his teens, he was already a star in the gospel world, fronting the Soul Stirrers, one of the most respected gospel groups of the time. But Sam had bigger dreams. He crossed over to secular music in the mid-1950s, a bold and controversial move. With his buttery tenor and unmatched phrasing, he crafted timeless hits like You Send Me Chain Gang and Cupid. By the time he reached his late 20s, He had not only conquered the charts, he was owning his masters, founding his own label, and opening doors for black artists in a white-controlled industry. Yet Sam wasn't just singing about love, he was stirring change. His 1964 anthem, "A Change Is Gonna Come," became the heartbeat of the civil rights movement, blending haunting orchestration with hope and sorrow. But then, without warning, his life ended violently. On December 11, 1964, at just 33 years old, Cook was shot and killed at a Los Angeles motel under murky circumstances. Official reports claimed he was killed by a hotel manager in self-defense. Others called it a setup alleging foul play tied to money control and racial politics. Though his career was cut short, Sam Cooke remains immortal. He didn't just create soul music, he infused it with dignity, consciousness, and purpose. He was the voice of a generation aching to be heard. Otis Redding. Otis Redding didn't just sing soul, he lived it. Born September 9, 1941 in Dawson, Georgia, Otis grew up singing in church and winning talent shows before most kids his age had even picked a career. By his late teens, he was already touring with local bands, perfecting a stage presence that would become his signature, explosive, heartfelt, and unforgettable. Inspired by Little Richard and Sam Cooke, Otis brought rawness to every note. His voice cracked not from imperfection, but from passion. Songs like "These Arms of Mine" and "Try a Little Tenderness" weren't just ballads, they were emotional outpourings. He signed with Stax Records and became its most bankable star, blending Southern grit with gospel influence. By the mid-60s, he had conquered black radio and was starting to break into white audiences, a rare feat at the time. His performance at the Monterey Pop Festival in 1967 marked his crossover. Rock fans embraced him as one of their own. But on December 10, 1967, tragedy struck. Just days after recording his hopeful masterpiece, sitting on the dock of the Bay, Redding boarded a plane with his band. En route to a concert in Wisconsin, the aircraft crashed into Lake Monona, killing Otis and most of his bandmates. He was only 26 years old. The song he never lived to see released became his biggest hit, reaching #1 posthumously. Otis Redding's legacy isn't measured in years, it's etched in soul. He embodied the spirit of the South, the ache of struggle, and the power of raw talent unleashed. His voice was lightning in a bottle, and the storm ended far too soon. Fredo Santana. Derek Coleman, known to the world as Fredo Santana, was the brooding face of Chicago's drill movement, cold, intense, and unfiltered. Born July 4, 1990, Fredo grew up in the same tough Englewood neighborhood as his cousin Chief Keef. But where Keef brought chaos, Fredo brought calculation. He wasn't the loudest, he was the most menacing. Launching his music career in his late teens, Fredo became a staple of Glow Gang, delivering mixtapes like "It's a Scary Sight" and "Trappin' Ain't Dead." His delivery was deliberate, almost emotionless, reflecting the trauma he witnessed daily. But while fans respected his authenticity, Fredo carried a deeper burden: addiction. He was open about his dependence on lean, a mix of codeine and promethazine, which he used to cope with anxiety and PTSD. Despite his fame, he never glamorized his habits. "I don't want my son to see me like this," he admitted publicly, referencing his goal to sober up for the sake of fatherhood. But his body was already breaking down. Fredo suffered multiple seizures, hospitalizations, and warnings from doctors. Still, he kept recording, even talking about a transition into mental health advocacy. On January 19, 2018, he died in his Los Angeles home from a fatal seizure. He was 27 years old. Fredo's death wasn't just a loss for drill music, it was a cry for help, heard too late. He was a soldier of the streets who never got to lay down his armor. In his voice, there was pain. In his eyes, exhaustion. His story reminds us that some wounds aren't visible, but they're fatal just the same. Speaker Knockers. Derek McAllister Jr., known as Speaker Knockers, was a self-made phenomenon. Born November 6, 1994, in New York, but raised in Columbia, South Carolina, he built a rap empire not in a studio, but from his bedroom. Armed with FL Studio, a microphone, and a work ethic beyond his years, he created beats, wrote lyrics, and recorded songs all by himself. At just 16, he began uploading melodic trap songs to YouTube and SoundCloud. Tracks like Lonely Dap You Up and the viral Rico Story trilogy showcased his ability to blend narrative emotion and catchy hooks. He was cinematic without needing visuals and lyrical without seeking validation. What made Speaker Knockers stand out wasn't just his sound, it was his independence. No label, no cosigns, just raw internet momentum. Fans connected with his emotional honesty and melodic vulnerability. He sang about love, betrayal, ambition, all with a teenager's sincerity and a producer's polish. By 2013, he was on the verge of stardom. Millions of views, underground respect, and a cult following made him one of the first viral rappers to bypass the traditional music industry completely. He was ready to sign major deals. He was planning a tour. Then on March 4, 2014, he vanished. 2 days later, he was found dead in his garage. The cause, a heart attack. He was just 19. There were no drugs in his system, no violence, just a young visionary gone suddenly and without warning. His death stunned a generation of online fans who saw themselves in his grind. Speaker Knockers didn't need fame to prove his worth. His music still spreads peer-to-peer, kid-to-kid. He was the sound of the future silenced before the world was ready to listen. Tara Correa McMullen. Tara Riggs. Correa McMullen was not born into Hollywood. Born February 24, 1989 in Westminster, Vermont, she was raised in Southern California and discovered acting almost by chance. But what started as a childhood curiosity quickly blossomed into a career filled with promise. Her breakout role came at age 15 when she was cast as Graciela Reyes in CBS's acclaimed legal drama Judging Amy. Graciela was a teenage gang member seeking redemption through the juvenile justice system, a complex character who was both fierce and vulnerable. Tara brought startling realism to the role, earning praise for her emotional depth and raw delivery. Her performance was so convincing that many were shocked to learn she was nothing like the troubled character she portrayed. Off-camera, Tara was known to be sweet, thoughtful, and deeply committed to her craft. She wanted to study filmmaking, write her own scripts, and help reshape how young Black and Latina women were portrayed on screen. But in a tragic twist of fate, life began to reflect fiction. At just 16 years old, Tara began dating a known gang member. On October 21, 2005, while standing outside an apartment complex in Inglewood, California, she was caught in a targeted shooting. A single bullet ended her life. Her death shocked Hollywood. Here was a girl who played redemption on television, taken by the very forces her character had tried to escape. The man who fired the gun was later convicted, but justice could never undo the loss. Tara Correa McMullen's story is one of stolen potential. A teenager who could have become a defining voice in her generation, silenced before she could write her next chapter. Her brief career, though small in volume, remains powerful in impact. She didn't just act, she made people feel. So now we ask, how many more young Black stars must be lost before the world truly listens? Is it fame that devours them? Or a society that fails to protect them once the cameras stop rolling? These weren't just celebrities. They were sons, daughters, visionaries. Their talent gave us joy, but their endings left us with questions. Let's keep their stories alive, not just in memory, but in action. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Which of these lives moved you most, and what can be done to stop this cycle? Subscribe for more untold truths from legends of Black excellence.